What's up everyone? Welcome back to Just Finished Coding. This is part 5 of our full Pygame course on Python, so let's get coding.
Just finished coding.
Now quick interjection here, if you've not watched parts 1 to 4, please watch them before you come here because we're picking up from where we left off and you'll be very lost. I'll leave a card for you right here. Please watch the videos and then come right back. If you're still here, I'm going to assume that you've watched parts 1 to 4, in which case your program should look something like mine. You should be able to move the spaceship around, but the spaceship goes through the screen and the bullets always appear at the center, which isn't really a good thing. And we'll be fixing those two things in this video, along with having zombies come at the starfighter from the top. Let's get right into it. The first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that the starfighter cannot go through the screen. And to do that, you want to head down below to your main loop and you should see these keys, for the right arrow, left arrow and so on. Now within our right arrow, we want to make sure that, the starfighter cannot go through the right end of the screen. And so what we need to do is to add an if condition, okay? And the if condition is going to check if starfighter.x plus starfighter.vel plus starfighter.width, okay, and I'll explain this in a second, is if this is less than, okay, or equal to xval, well, in this case we can move, okay. But if this is not the case, then oops, I spelled xval wrong. I think it's x underscore val. If this is not the case, we're not going to do anything, okay. And here's how the logic goes. So if the x position of the starfighter, and keep in mind that the x position is the extreme left end of the starfighter in terms of the x positions, and this plus the starfighter width, and it would have probably made more sense if I put if I interchange the order, but if the x position plus the width, and this is going to give us the right end of the starfighter. Now the right end of the starfighter isn't enough to execute this condition because we could still go through the screen if that initial position is less than the starfighter velocity, in which case we'd move to the right by the starfighter velocity and then we'd go through slightly. That would be better off than what we have currently, but still that's something which we do not want. So if we add in a plus starfighter.well, this is going to make sure that our starfighter can never move off the screen. And to give you some perspective, let me just run my code and show you what I mean. So when I move to the right, you can see that almost like an invincible barrier, my starfighter is stopped. And for the left arrow key, it's almost the same thing, basically the same logic. So I'm just going to copy and paste this right here. And obviously we need to make some changes. So this is going to be greater than or equal to, this is going to be 0. And in this case, we can remove the starfighter width because the left end of the screen is going to be just starfighter x. And instead of plus vel, we're going to do minus vel. Okay, and I'm going to tap this. And now let's test it out. So now I'm going to move my starfighter to the extreme left end of the screen. And boom, just like an invincible barrier, my starfighter is stopped. Perfect. So now that that is done, now we can get into making sure that our bullets work properly. And to do that, we need to update the starfighter's position. So head back to your starfighter class, and that is called shooter, I believe. And right here, you want to add in a new method, okay? And this method is going to be called def update center, okay? And that's what I'm going to call it, center. Perfect. And let's actually put in a, like this kind of method. Perfect. So within this, what I'm going to have is just this code right here, okay? So we're just going to update the center based on the x position and y position constantly. And we're going to call that method right after, we pop bullets and all of that stuff. So after that bullet for loop, I'm going to say starfighter.update center. And that is pretty much it. So once you have this in place, now you can run your code. And now if you actually shoot your bullets, you can see that we always have it coming through the starfighter's nose. It's still kind of a bit strange because we are shooting so many bullets at the same time, but we will be fixing that right now. Now fixing the bullets is going to be pretty hard because the solution that I'm going to put to you is kind of not the greatest one to use because this would depend highly on your computer's execution speed. So whatever values I'm using right now, you better play with them and make sure that they work at least decently for you, okay? And the way I'm going to do this is to have two things, okay? Both of which I'm going to initialize right at the beginning after, clock equal to clock dot tick, or maybe I'll do it right on top itself. So I'll do it right here where I have game variables or something like that. So game variables, and the variables that I'm going to be having right now are going to be, the first variable is going to be bullet count, okay, and this is going to be 0. Then we're going to have something called bullet loop, okay, which is going to be 5, and this is what you want to customize based on how it works for you, okay. And right now I'm going to scroll down below. I'm not really sure what was the error right there. Okay, perfect, now it's gone. So you want to scroll down below right here to your main loop where you have the bullets being appended when the space key is pressed. And what you want to have right here is another if condition. So if, okay, bullet count, okay, is greater than or equal to bullet loop. Well, in this case, we're going to allow the player to append a bullet. And what we're also going to do at the end of this if statement after we append a bullet is to set the bullet count back to 0, okay. And right down below, okay, probably after we update it, you could have it before, this really doesn't matter that much. I'm going to increment the bullet count. So bullet count plus equal to 1. And in addition to doing this, I'm going to make sure that there are no more than 4 bullets on the screen. So what you can do is to say if, I'm going to do it right here. So if, okay, length of the bullets list, so if length of bullets is not greater than 4, okay, or I'm just going to say is less than 4. Well, in this case, we can do all of this, and I'm going to just tab all of this. Perfect. So now when we test out our code, I'm going to press the A key, and you can see that our bullets work way better than before. Now they may still be pretty fast or pretty slow depending on how fast or slow your computer is, and I'm actually going to decrease this to be 3 just so that there are no more than 3 bullets on the screen. And this is probably going to work pretty well for most of you. And as you can see, I'm pretty happy with the way my bullets are going, although the velocity is kind of too high right now. I think the bullets are fine. And what I'm going to do right now is to leave our starfighter, and now let's get into our zombies. Now for our zombies, I'm going to create a whole class just for itself because this thing is going to be pretty huge, okay. So right after the bullet, I'm going to have some spaces, and let's get into a class. So class, I'm going to call this zombies, or just zombie, or maybe I'll call it zombies, okay. And we're not going to inherit from anywhere, so I'm going to type an object. And right after this, I'm going to have one class variable, which is going to be called zombie mul, okay. And I'll explain what this does a little bit later. Just set it to 12. After that, I'm going to have the def init method, or the constructor method, whatever you want to call it. And right here, I'm going to have self.costume, okay, equals, and this is where like it's kind of tricky. And we need to use random.randint, okay, and we need to put in 1, 3, okay. And if you look at all your images right here, you should see that we have some zombie images, and they're called 1, 2, and 3 PNG. And all of these are going to be strings, obviously. But what we can do is to have, the costume, which is initially an integer because we're using the random module. We can turn that into a string, and then we can join that to like the file which we want to import in as our image. You'll get what I mean. But what this line of code is going to do is to assign a random value from 1 to 3, including 1 and 3 to costume, okay? And that is what we want. So once you have self.costume, now you need the image, okay? And what you can do right here is to say self.image, okay? Or actually you can do this within the loop. I'm just going to do outside, okay? Self.image is equal to, okay? And this once again, we're going to say pygame.image dot load, and within that parentheses, what I'm going to do is to say string, okay, of costume, or rather self dot costume, and we're going to basically add to this. I believe you can we're like concatenating a string, if you want to call it that way, and what we're going to add to it is dot png, and no space actually, it's just dot png. Perfect. So this is going to give us the result of an image, and because of this we're going to have one of these three zombies that is going to take the place of zombie images that is going to take the place of this variable. So each of these zombies has a different width and height, and in case you want to, I highly recommend just going to your directory and looking at those images just to see like how different the widths and heights are. So because of that, we need to have different collision boxes for each of them, and we are also going to have different, widths and heights for each of them. And doing that is kind of easy in a way, but it does require a bit of time. So that is what I'm going to do right now. So what I'm going to have is three if conditions, okay? So first I'm going to say if self.costume is equal to 1. In this case, I'm going to set the width to be is going to be 6 times the zombie mul, not zombie mul, self.zombie mul. Make sure you add that for all, class variables or these constructor variables. Anyway, so now I'm just going to duplicate all of this code, and I'm going to type in elif first, and there we go. Oops, obviously indentation issues. So there we are. So I'm going to tab all of this in place. So self dot okay, this is just so annoying. I'm just going to copy paste this one. So paste. Perfect. So now in this case, if the costume is 2, I'm going to be setting the width to be 7 times self.zombie mul. And I don't think I mentioned this, but it's only the width of these costumes that differ. The height is pretty much going to be the same thing. So the third one I'm going to have is, if self.costume is 3, or rather elif elif self.costume is equal to 3. Well, in this case, what I'm going to do is to set self.width, okay, to be 4 times self.zombie mul. And this is going to set up your width. And what I'm going to do after all of this is to set self.height is equal to 5 times zombie mul. And since our height is constant, we can do this outside all of the if statements. So 5 times self.zombie mul. Perfect. And these heights, I've just tested them out, and this is what I've come up with. In case you find that any value other than this, other than these values works better, or you think by modifying the zombie mul you're getting a better result, then please go ahead and do so. This is your game, and please make sure that you do it the best you think you can do. So once you have all this in place, there are a couple of more things that we need to do within the init function, and that's what I'm going to be doing right now. So right after this, I'm going to have the usual variables which we set up. So self.x in this case is going to be random.randint, okay, and this is going to be 0 and xval minus width. So x, not s, xval minus width, minus self.width, okay, self.width. And that is it. So what this is going to do is to make sure that the starfighter goes somewhere on top of the screen. Now it's just going to be on the top of the screen, and we really aren't going to be knowing the X position, and that's going to be decided at random. So that's what is going to make each of the zombies go somewhere up at random and then come right below to the starfighter. So in addition, we need to set self.y to be right at the top, and that is going to be 0. Okay. Once you have this, I'm going to have 3 if conditions once again. And in addition to the self parameter that we have within our init function, I'm going to have another parameter called stage. And this is going to refer to the level which we are currently on. So I'm going to say if stage is equal 1. In this case, I'm going to set self.well to be 8. We don't have to get into the other stages right now. We will be coding them later on. So since we have our self.velocity right now, when we declare a new object, what we can do after that is to make sure that the zombies move towards the starfighter sprite. And to do that, I'm going to have a whole other function for itself. So I'm going to scroll down, a whole other method. I'm sorry for like using function and method, but whenever I use functions with respect to classes, make sure that you understand them as method, as a method. Okay, anyway, let's get into it. So def move, okay, and within this, we're just going to have like the self parameter, and I think I indented it incorrectly, so I'm going to make sure it's a method right now. There we go. So we don't have a self parameter just as yet, so there we are. And within this, here is where we're going to use a bit of trigonometry, okay? And in case you don't understand it completely, I'm going to explain it to the best of my abilities. But in case you don't understand it for whatever reason, you can just like skip through and just copy paste the code, okay? That's perfectly fine. So what I'm going to do is to actually open up So I'll be trying my best to explain stuff with the help of a whiteboard, so let's just see how this goes. So imagine that your zombie is right here at this corner, and imagine that your center position of the starfighter is right here. And we just have like an imaginary triangle connecting both of them. And this angle is going to be like 90 degrees, and that's the idea, okay? And because this is a right angle triangle, we obviously can use trig ratios. And in case we want to find out this angle, let's hypothetically call it theta. Then what we can do is to use something called the tan ratio, okay? And tan is going to be the opposite side by the adjacent side. And in our case, this is going to be the opposite side of theta, and this is going to be the adjacent side of theta. So the tan of theta is going to be O by A. But if we wanted to find out theta, but we knew O and A, which is our case, since we have the X and Y positions of both the starfighter and the zombie, we are going to be able to find out both O and A. But if we know both of that, then we can find out what theta is by using the inverse tan function, which is sometimes called A tan, okay? But that isn't really important, just know that you can find that out, okay? And the computer does that for you. So if you find out theta, then what I want you to imagine is that we have like a smaller triangle right here, okay? And this value, okay, right here, this diagonal line is going to be the velocity of the zombie. So if we want to ensure that that is the velocity and the zombie moves in that direction, we can use the sine of theta, okay, times the velocity, and that is going to give us this angle, right, not this angle, this line right here, and we can just move in that line, and we can do that by just like moving this much in the x-axis and then this much in the y-axis, and then we'd get velocity. We'd move velocity towards the starfighter, and that is pretty much the entire idea of this. Now, like I said, in case you didn't understand anything, it's perfectly fine. Just go ahead and copy me, okay? So now I'm going to have, like I said, theta. So I'm going to set theta to be math.atan, and within this, we're going to have two values, okay? So one value divided by another value. And what we're going to have right here is starfighter, okay, dot center x, okay, minus self dot x, not self dot x, and right here we're going to have starfighter dot center y minus self dot y, and this is going to give us like the A tan ratio, and we're going to get theta. But keep in mind that theta is in terms of radians and not degrees. And if you want to convert it to degrees, you just have to say math.degrees and put this whole thing within like brackets right there. Now we don't really have to do this. I just prefer to work with degrees because we're going to convert it back to radians once again. But I just like to have it this way, and that's what I'm going to go with. So next line, in this case, I'm going to find out something which is called like change x and change y. And we're going to move both the x and y value based on the velocity. So the change in x is going to be self.x plus is equal to, and here's where we need to use the sine ratio. So I'm going to say math.sine, okay, and math.sine, and once again inside this we have to enter in a radian value. So I'm going to convert theta to degrees. So theta times, And for this, you need to know a bit of radian conversion. So pi radians is 180 degrees. So it's going to be math.pi divided by 180. So math.pi divided by 180. So that's pretty much all we need here. And we're going to multiply this times the velocity. And for the y value, we just need to do the opposite. And by opposite, I mean we use the self.well. Don't we have this in place? Yeah, we do. Okay, for the y value, all I'm going to say is instead of sine of theta, I'm going to say use the cosine of theta or cos of theta. And this is pretty much going to ensure that our spaceship's x and y values change correctly. So lastly, I'm just going to have a draw function, so def draw, and we're just going to blit it onto the screen. So I'm going to say win.blit, and I'm going to blit self.image, and we are going to blit it at the x and y coordinates. So self.x and self.y. Perfect. And that is pretty much going to be your entire zombie class. And now we can scroll down below to our main loop and now code it in so that our zombies move towards the starfighter. So I'm going to have the zombie code right before the bullet. And right here, I'm going to say zombies.append. And I know we didn't have a zombies list yet. So just like the bullets list, I'm going to create a zombie list. So zombies is equal to an empty list. And right here, we are going to say zombies.append zombies and follow that up with a 1. Okay, and that is pretty much going to be it. And after this, what you can do is say for z in zombies, just like our bullets. So for z in zombies, we are going to say zombie z.move, and we are going to say, oopsie, that was not necessary. And we are going to say z.draw. So z.draw. And that is pretty much going to be it. I'm just going to confirm whether I call that move, and I think I did. Yep, I called it move. Perfect. So now we need to just run this program, and as you can see, with our zombies coming from the top of the stage, that was obviously way too big for a zombie. So the reason the zombies were so big was because I forgot to add in one line of code right here. And what we just need to add is that self.image is going to be resized. So self.image equals to p.transform.scale. And within this, I'm going to just say self.image, just like the way we did for the starfighter and all of that. And we're going to say self.width and self.height. Okay. And this is pretty much going to be it. So now when we run our code, let's just see, it's a big movement right here. And you can see that we have way too zombies, but they all move towards the starfighter. And that's the important thing. We don't have to worry too much about, all of these kind of things. They will, the interpreter will convert them automatically, okay? And since our zombies work, at least not completely, but at least partially, I'm going to end the video right here. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a like. And also don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.